This is Vincent calling Palomino.
From the Black Hole Collection, the USS Palomino, assembly required. Captain Holland and Vincent each sold separately.
Okay, Vincent, get on board. Let's blast off.
USS Palomino and all Black Hole action figures each sold separately by Mego.
Who calls me from out of the pit?
Welcome to The Importance of Being Earnest. I'm Paul.
I'm Mark. And tonight we're going to review Disney's foray into PG land as well as space in their classic film, or not so classic depending on who you ask, The Black Hole, starring of course the incomparable Ernest Borgnine.
That's right, the nexus and crux of the entire series.
Yes.
But before we get into that, if you like The Importance of Being Earnest, The Return of the Son of the Show, our Battlestar Galactica shenanigans, our Svenjuligans, do us all a favor, go down below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, maybe take a crack at the pinned comment that I put at the top. I usually try to pose a question.
Look thoughtfully at the screen while you come up with something brilliant to say to us.
That's right. But most importantly, above everything else, enjoy the show.
There is an inexorable force in the cosmos where time and space converge. A place beyond man's vision, but not his reach. It is the most mysterious and awesome point in the universe, where the here and now may be forever. It is unavoidable. Moving through space, swallowing everything in its path. Radio waves, light, even planets and stars.
Are you programmed to speak? Gravity's at maximum, Dan.
My God, I think it's got us.
We've got a break here, too.
Now, man is about to enter the black hole. A journey that begins where everything ends.
Well, so 1979's The Black Hole. Just a quick synopsis. Even the crew of the Palomino, who are deep space explorers in search of alien life, encounter a gravitational pull of a black hole. When they go to investigate it, they discover a previous space exploration ship, the USS Cygnus, which has been lost for 20 years, which had their original mandate of finding alien life. And from thence on, both disaster and terror results, as well as science.
That's one word for it.
Yes.
It's funny. We'll probably cover more of this, but it's funny after you reading that out.
Mhm.
This movie gets so unfairly compared to Star Wars,
Yeah.
but in fact, these deep space life form exploration missions, that's Star Trek.
Yeah, well, and it's in the movie, the kernel for the movie long predates Star Wars, and so as we learned, and could always feel from the way the movie is and the music's written, it started as it was called the Poseidon Adventure in Space. Is what Ernst Borgnine. You got to have Ernst Borgnine if you're going to do the Poseidon Adventure in Space.
He was probably signed on in 1972.
Correct, yes. And so it originally started as, hey, let's do a disaster flick in space. which eventually they did do, but it was a TV movie. So
Mhm.
eventually they did do Disaster in Space, but and Airplane 2 technically is Disaster in Space.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it started as a Poseidon Adventure, so they really had it going long before then, and many, and really I think owes more to 2001, especially the ending.
Yeah.
And so it really, like much sci-fi that came out right around then, it owed way more to what came before than Star Wars. Star Wars caught everyone off guard.
Yeah.
So this is not a Star Wars clone. It
Not
just,
even close.
unfortunately, it just due to many script rewrites and many directors and financing and things like that, it took till 79 to release it. So, and then by then, of course, then they had to go back and add in some
Yeah.
Star Wars-esque special effects. But
Literally anything with special effects
Yeah.
post 77 was compared to Star Wars.
correct.
Unfairly.
So it has a lot writing against it, I think, as far as like someone appreciating the movie, and that and the fact that Neil deGrasse Tyson did a whole takedown of it for its lack of scientific veracity, forgetting that most space movies are space fantasy.
Yeah.
This is not hard science fiction. This is not Ben Bova's Mars trilogy. This isn't hard science fact movie.
Yeah.
If you look at the majority of sci-fi space flicks, they're all sci-fantasy.
I've got nothing against Tyson.
Yeah.
But he strikes me as the kind of kid who's sitting in the theater watching movies when there's no sound in space.
Yes, yeah.
And then he got beat up.
Right. And I mean, if I want to watch a documentary about space or black holes, then I would watch Neil deGrasse Tyson's documentary on black holes, but I'd also probably fall asleep. So that's not what this movie's about. A great adventure, which they kind of almost all the characters say at one point in the movie. And so I think he misses the entire point of the movie entirely.
Speaking of characters,
Yes.
why don't we run down the list of who's in this Star Wars
and much like disaster flicks of before, it stars a stellar cast. And so we start with Maximilian Schell,
who, by the way, was in a disaster movie called The Avalanche Express. Thanks, Nick. Which is really good. This movie is so good. You're having a good time, and then it hits you. Oh crap! This is a disaster movie.
Okay.
Because it escalates quickly.
Yes. And so we got Maximilian Schell. And there's a couple interesting stories about how he got involved. Then we get Anthony Perkins as Durant. And of course, that to me is the horror element, because there is a horror. This is also sort of a horror movie.
It is very much a horror.
Yeah, it's a horror, and they're trapped just like the Cygnus is like a haunted house, and so House of Horrors. And then Robert Forster as
one of my favorites.
Yep, Captain Dan Holland. Joseph Bottoms as Lieutenant Charlie Pizer, the young Han Solo-esque guy.
He acts a lot younger than he looks in this movie. But I guess they couldn't have got a younger guy or something.
Yeah, I wanted, you have to have somebody appeal to the youngins.
Yeah, I get that. The robots weren't enough.
Yes, and then Yvette Mimieux as Dr. Kate McRae
from The Time Machine, by the way.
And there was some more sci-fi. Here we go.
No stranger to sci-fi.
Yes, and she was not the first choice. They had a Vogue model who was the first choice, but because of the special effects with the weightlessness, they wanted the actress to cut her hair because it'd be too much money to simulate weightless hair. And so she got so upset about getting her hair cut that she got drunk during the haircut and subsequently crashed her car on the way home, so she couldn't even be in the movie.
Hopefully no one was too
No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't. She just couldn't be in the movie. And so Yvette was willing to chop her hair off and have a really bad 70s hair.
It really is one of those things you just can't help but look at.
Yeah. Makes her look like 50 years older than she was.
Yeah, right? I guess like a pixie cut would have been out of the question.
Yeah.
Like, give her that Mia Farrow thing from Osborne's Baby.
Curls, but instead they gave her like the 50-year-old mom on my fifth kid, don't care anymore haircut.
Yeah.
So, and then some guy named Ernest Borgnine, I don't know, I never heard of him, plays Harry Booth, who is sort of the everyman You know, honestly, we can get more into this. He's, I think, the smartest guy on the ship till the very end. And so
He's
I would
Ernest Borgnine.
he's Ernest Borgnine. So he's Harry Booth,
It's not his
who is
first
a
disaster.
no, it's not. Yes, Harry Booth, who's a journalist on board, and sort of capturing this great adventure. And then we've got a couple voice actors, of course, the um, ubiquitous Roddy McDowall is the voice of Vincent, who is one of the robots, and then Slim Pickens
That's right.
as old Bob robot.
They did the best they could to give that robot a cowboy hat.
Yes, they did. Yes, yeah, mushed cowboy hat. And then actually, the director Gary Nelson makes a brief appearance. And we'll talk about his cameo. So he's actually in the movie too. So yeah, just a star-studded. I mean, you can imagine, just like, well, it's not. I don't have the right cover here, but Poseidon Adventure, you got all the star-studded cast in the boxes at the bottom.
Yeah,
and so that's kind of what this one feels like as well.
The cast for this movie is insane.
Yeah,
it real for a suppose like a sci-fi foray, a Star Wars knockoff. It's ridiculous how many people, and it kind of reflects the early ideas of it being a disaster movie, because disaster movies, as you kids might not know, were usually chock full of not necessarily A-listers, but definitely B and C-listers, with the occasional like theatrical actor.
Yeah, Steve McQueen, your one A-lister at the top villain.
Yeah, Richard Harris was in one that was pretty cool. And it's like, that's just an odd choice for a disaster actor.
So, I mean, but they were the thing. They were I mean, God knows, we love them. Our friend Nick wrote a whole book about them.
We'll put a link to his book down below for you to check out.
Yep, if you're interested in looking into all the disaster flicks that have ever been. And so, so I think it could have easily been a disaster film. Crew encounters, even my guess is it was the meteor storm. So space crew encounters a meteor storm. Can they escape? Because there is the whole great sequence with the meteor storm.
Look like Cheeto Puffs.
Cheeto Puffs, yes. But then they really went to town. They added a lot. So perhaps all of the different rewrites, because it went through, good Lord, it went through a lot of script rewrites. But I think each reiteration of it added some more depth to it. And so this is not and again, nowadays it wouldn't matter with Disney. Nowadays Disney can do deep, thought-provoking adult films. Nobody bats an eye at it. But back then, I'm sure people went to this thinking, kind of like what happened to Dark Crystal. People going to see, I want to see fantasy movie about Muppets, and Dark Crystal was anything but that. And so I think this would have been, oh, cool, a Disney space movie, and it wasn't like Space Family Robinson. It wasn't,
Yeah, I saw it in the theaters like opening weekend, and I was the only one that liked it because I saw where the adventure in it was. The adventure isn't action. The adventure is the black hole.
Yes,
And
there's a lot of thought-provoking stuff in it, and so and it does owe. I think there's been a lot of the critics complain. There's a lot of talking heads, but that's disaster movie as well. That's the tropes of. You get to know all the characters before they're picked off one by one
as they get on the boat or the plane.
Yeah. I mean, you got to know about Manny Bell.
That's right.
How can you not? And so,
crazy thing is too, with as many rewrites as this thing had. The dialogue isn't forced. It makes sense. The plot moves along. It kind of coasts for a while, but as soon as it hits it, it takes off.
Right.
And it's just a roller coaster from there.
And for me, the middle part where it drags, I guess you could say it drags, but that's more of the horror movie trope. That's we're slowing down. We're slowly discovering the horror that we're and so. Because it definitely has a lot of Frankenstein in it, with Reinhardt converting the crew, the leftover crew, into zombie-like humanoids.
20 years in space by yourself.
And so
crazy.
The crew retaliates against. They're recalled home because their mission is a failure. He will not admit failure. He must. I'm not quite sure when it became when his mission went from finding alien life to going through a black hole. Not quite. They don't quite make that clear. But at a certain point, he becomes obsessed with proving himself right, which, again, to me, adds a little bit of Moby Dick to it. He's very much an Ahab. And, the Pequod is the Cygnus, and the White Whale is the black hole.
This movie is basically Mysterious Island in space.
Okay.
And that's what I love about it, because I love Mysterious Island. So just that whole, you got your Captain Nemo character who's crazy. You got the accidental crew.
Yep.
You got the disaster at the end, because everything always has to get destroyed in the end.
Yeah, I just think it's wrong. The criticisms of it are wrong on every level. I mean, the whole movie is contemplating, what our existence in the universe, what happened, is there something beyond us in the universe? I mean, there's definitely, we'll talk about the ending in a little while, but there's definitely some Christian hell allegories at the very end. And so, it's just a lot. I mean, really, really deep for a Disney movie. At the same 79. I'm not sure what else they were doing in 79, but
floundering.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. I mean, the Herbie movies were not sooner than that. So
there was a time.
I remember the kids going to see Herbie movies at that.
Right. Well, there was a time when Disney was hemorrhaging money.
Yeah.
They couldn't get anything off the ground. They had a good run of some animated movies, and then a bunch of just stuff that just didn't really take off. We look back on them fondly now.
Yeah.
But at that point in time, they really didn't. They weren't the movie machine they were or they are now.
Yeah. Well, and they were floundering because they were looking at Something Wicked This Way Comes. I mean, they were trying different, kind of like breaking out of their kids-only movies mold, and so comedies and kid movies. And so, they were kind of throwing everything against the wall to see what would stick, and see if they could expand their brand. And unfortunately for them, it didn't really work till recently. And some may question whether it's working right now.
And some may question if isn't really just all for kids anyway now.
Correct.
Have they gone back to that?
Yeah.
The answer is no.
Yeah. So it's just, they want to make money. So they're trying, hey, well, we'll do a disaster flick, and we'll do a space movie, and we'll do.
Well, in the movie landscape in the 70s was way different than what came before it and what's come after, because they were all the production companies were trying things to see what would work and what wouldn't. And that's why we ended up with movies like Rocky, and the aforementioned Rosemary's Baby, and all these just really great Exorcist, all these really great movies that were unheard of at the time. Yeah. So Disney was right there with them, just trying everything too.
Yep. And then unfortunately, Star Wars comes along, and then now you got to, not only do you have to be experimental, you got to be a blockbuster too.
Yep.
So that kind of that I'm sure push for the robot and the robot gunfight at the robot OK Corral.
Right.
Which, I mean, I still, even watching it this time, I still love that part.
It's dumb.
Yeah.
But fun.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a little bit to me, the fact that Star, who is the original evil robot that Reinhardt builds, throws a tantrum and destroys himself, which to me echoes that I think you need that scene because it explains that Maximilian is kind of lost himself as well.
Yeah.
And so Reinhardt created robots as flawed as he is.
I love the fact that his robots are flawed humans.
Yeah.
But his crew...
Yes. Yes. Are zombified.
Yes.
Automatons. Yeah. So it just shows his flawed ideas. Although we'll never get to know if he was right and could have brought the whole Cygnus through, because, of course, Perry Booth ruins that for him in the movie. And so, but yeah, I thought that, the rest of the crew is Well, they kind of do the horror movie tropes. So some people are on board with the scientists, some people are not. Anthony Perkins just sees glory and a chance to succeed, and he's all on board with Dr. Reinhardt.
Perkins is perhaps the most bizarre actor choice for this movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we all know what Anthony Perkins is famous for.
Yes.
He could have made one movie his entire life,
Yeah.
and that would have been enough.
Yeah.
But to put him in a sci-fi science fantasy movie was just like it was like a little heads up that things ain't gonna be
correct
normal. They're not gonna be what you think they are.
Yeah. Yeah, and so and so the slow reveal of what the horror that Reinhardt's created. Yeah. Perkins fits right in with that. Eventually. But Borgnine, to his credit, so to Harry Booth's credit, Harry is. I love. They even call him out on how quickly he changes.
Oh yeah.
But he definitely Harry to me reads the situation correctly the whole way through. So he first says, "Oh man, this is a great story," and I don't care how much Dan Holland, the captain, is resistant to going and doesn't want to do it. They all want to do it. I mean, they're astronauts, for God's sake.
Yes.
In deep space looking for alien life. So he correctly reads the situation. Well, we got to go. This story is, how is that ship? I mean, because the mystery of how is the Cygnus just sitting there not getting pulled into the black hole. And so, I mean, Harry reads that correctly. And then Harry gets there and seems enchanted by Reinhardt, but then quickly something just doesn't fit right in his gut. And his good old Harry's gut tells him something's not right. And he's the first one to detect that the mandroids, if you will, are perhaps could be human. And then he's screaming at everybody, "Let's get the hell out of this shit. He's going to kill us. He may be saying he's going to let us view them and film this, but he's going to kill us." So, I mean, Harry, and even though he betrays the crew and leaves, and of course gets killed, he's right. He's not wrong.
No,
he's not wrong.
And his tune changes, like when he finds the garden.
Yeah,
he's like, "Wait a minute, this isn't right."
Yeah, the garden scene. Yeah, he figures out that something is not right here.
Yep.
So to me, like his investigative journalism comes through. I mean, that's it. And so, like to me, he's the smartest character. While the rest of them are all kind of wide-eyed and by the science and the technology. He's like, well, I don't know, you guys.
I mean, and honestly, he's the only one that really gets an arc.
Yes, yeah.
The rest of them are, we're here, now we got to get out of here.
Right.
And granted, you got Muse looking for her dad.
Yeah.
But nobody goes through as much as Harry does in this movie.
Yeah, I think, and it's unfortunate he dies, of course, but he's Ernest Borgnine, so he has to die.
I mean, he was in 100 movies and he died in like 97 of them.
Correct. Now, granted, he lives in the Poseidon Adventure, but there's a whole arc for that. There's a whole reason for that. So, yeah, I just think, he's not dumb. He's not dumb in this film, and so I don't feel like he's kind of made the villain for stealing the ship and leaving, but. No,
that's really the rest of you remember him as.
Yeah,
as the cowardly lion or whatever that steals the ship and crashes. When he's like, you know what? I tried to tell you people.
Yeah,
I'm out.
Well, that and the fact that the dumb, the kid astronaut. We're gonna go take him on. Let's go rescue everyone. We're not gonna defeat all of these robots. He's got an army.
Yeah,
you guys are nuts. Let's just if she, sorry about her luck. That she's up there in the tower, but let's get the hell out of here. We're not, he's not going to let us live. And so I think it's one of his strongest performances, even though he's kind of waddling along. I mean, there's a point where I'm like, God bless you.
We had our fun with Borgnine in this movie.
Yeah.
And the other thing about him though, out of the entire cast, he has what looks like the most comfortable sweater anyone in that movie has. That thing, I hope he got to take it home with him. It looks so warm and comfortable.
Yeah.
Like him, the movie's over and like him and Tova can curl up by the fire. She can like nestle up into his, comfy sweater.
He could have some turducken, some Ernest Borgnine turducken.
That's right.
Ready for them. Yeah. Yeah, he does. He does look comfy. Yeah. But yet it looks spacey. It looks,
Yes.
yeah, it's got that. It's what Star Trek, which ironically, the motion picture came, which they failed to do, by putting everybody in bland pajamas. Yeah, he looks comfy, but yet professional. Comfy, but professional. And so we need the Ernest Borgnine comfy but professional line of clothing for men. You have to look at, the fact that the weirdness of the ending. I mean, they definitely go for the space baby,
Yeah.
and
The Star Child.
Yeah.
2001
Yeah.
ending.
Yeah, and so apparently they were stuck on an ending. Apparently they were. I mean, because they could have easily. Everybody gets on board. If it's a disaster movie, everyone gets on board. Their ship's destroyed. They get on board the probe ship. They shoot away. They watch the ship get destroyed.
Yep.
And they're all hugging each other, and you see them, and then the helicopter.
Maximilian's like,
yeah.
And while the good guys get away, basically.
Yeah, that could have been the easy ending, but they did not go for that. And so, unfortunately, the probe is programmed to go through the black hole, so they go through it.
They get on this probe thinking because their ship got destroyed, so they get on this probe to get out of there, and they're like, this thing is pre-programmed to go into it.
Yep.
Which you see it. There's a scene when they're having dinner. Yeah. You see the probe coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a little foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Chekhov's probe.
Yes, Chekhov's probe. Yes. So they go through, and then you get the weird psychedelic the montage.
Right.
Yes.
As I pointed out, the hell scene looks like a Ronnie James Dio video.
Yeah, yes.
Like instead of Maximilian up on that ledge, it should have been like Dio, like
right. Exactly. Welcome to hell, Maximilian. Yeah. Meinhardt. Yeah. Nowadays, maybe we'd have Ronnie James Dio guest star, but
Ronnie James Dio as Professor Reinhardt.
Yes. But it's just the weird where he and Maximilian merge. And he's trapped in his own personal hell. He's one of the he's the dead man in the robot suit
for all the people that he did.
Yes, correct.
Did dirty to. Yep. Yeah,
and then they pass through the black hole and come out. Kind of what we would now call scientific theory would be a white hole. They come through a white hole. They go through the singularity and then pass out the white hole. And the white hole theory is that if a black hole, everything goes in and can't get out. And a white hole, everything comes out but can't go in. And so some say that's the other side of a black hole. Is a white hole. Some would argue that's sort of the Big Bang theory too as well. So that's where the expanding universe. So they end up in sort of a heaven-like. Because the planet they're going to with the star behind it kind of looks like a halo.
Yeah, it's definitely Halo.
Like definitely, yeah. So they definitely go off into heaven. And so or I suppose another dimension. I read the book when I was a little kid, the Alan Dean Foster adaptation, and he didn't like. He thought there was way too much sci fantasy in it. Mm-hmm. So in the book, he made a lot of changes to make it at least a little more scientifically plausible. So his angle was that he just went with Star Child. So basically, because, and this was a weird point plot in the movie, that the fact that Dr. McCrae has a psychic link with the robots. And so because of that psychic link, Vincent, the captain, and they merge into one being when they are born to the other side.
Yeah. So, he was going for a more 2001. Yeah. Personally, I love the psychic link with the robot thing. It's underdeveloped. It's kind of like the Force, if you will, in that they just say this thing and somebody does this and somebody does this, and but it's like. It's such a cool idea that it's unfortunate that it didn't get how though?
Right,
why
right.
But this was in a time when movies were 90 minutes long.
Yes.
So they had to basically shave off all the stuff that wasn't really pertinent to the plot.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been pertinent to the plot at the end when they went through the black hole. But I
think it helped with some of the plot. It was easier to do that than coming up with some sort of communication device.
Right.
they
And it
could
just
let each
adds
other
to
know.
it, though.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, it just adds a level of weirdness to it that I like so much.
Yeah. Well, that and the fact that, like Star Wars, apparently everyone can understand droid speak because Maximilian comes up and doesn't really say anything, or he kind of like makes a whirring noise. Oh, the probe is back. It's just like they all know.
Yeah.
Apparently Reinhardt can understand droid. And so
the droids aren't actually even talking.
No,
He's just in his head because he's crazy.
Yeah,
He's just
yeah.
like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
Nonsense, is that it?
Yes,
Why
yeah.
didn't you say so?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you were going in thinking Star Wars, just like there were a bunch of movies back then, if you went in thinking it was Star Wars, you were wrong because they weren't trying to be Star Wars till Roger Corman started making Star Wars ripoff.
Basically, yeah.
You know what I mean? Then those were Star Wars.
When he wasn't ripping off Alien,
Yeah,
he was ripping off Star Wars.
yeah. So let's not forget that Alien came out in '79. I mean, so we're talking. There was a lot of experimental space movies that just were probably in production, had been written prior to Star Wars coming out. So, and it's just that Alien was, fantastic. So it came out.
Yes,
but again, like we said earlier, I think this has some horror elements in it as well. Especially like getting there. They're going there. There's no one there. They're sort of guided through. It seems dead. It seems unused. I mean, to me, it was just like a haunted house.
Yeah.
It's
well,
just,
yeah, and if some people will say that Alien is a haunted house.
Correct.
In space,
yep.
But quite honestly, Black Hole is a haunted house.
Yes,
in space.
it is. Yeah. I mean, all they needed was, and Disney could have done it because of the Apple Bottom Gang. Don Knotts could have done it, or whatever they're called.
The
Apple
boots with the fur.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, Apple Dumpling Gang.
Apple Dumpling Gang.
Apple I like. But anyway, Don Knotts could have been in the movie. Could have been, Mr. Chicken.
Dude, okay.
So we could have a crossover.
Don Knotts and Ernest Borgnine.
Yes.
But you have Don Knotts play Anthony Perkins' character.
Yes. Yeah.
Or he's Dr. Reinhardt.
Yeah, exactly. So the other layer to this movie, and I dare anyone to watch the beginning of this movie and not have it as ear candy in your head for 30 years. 40 years is John Barry's soundtrack to this movie. Wow. I mean, so they went out and got the guy that scored many of the James Bond movies to do this, and you can hear James Bond in it. You can hear, but to me, he captures. There's the space theme in the beginning, but it kind of has a disaster movie feel to the soundtrack, and then you get the horror music in it as well, and then you kind of get the bombastic when there's the scene where they're going down the side of the ship when the meteors are coming, and it becomes like an action adventure music. So he definitely used a lot of what he did with James Bond, but that John Barry soundtrack, man, that just makes that movie for me. So they definitely, I mean, if they're being accused of imitating Star Wars, they definitely found their John Williams. And so, but that beginning theme, man. Ironically, though, it was one of the last. It and Star Trek: The Motion Picture, the last two movies to have sort of the orchestral. The black screen overture at the beginning.
Yeah.
The soundtrack, man, just kills on this movie. Oh, yeah, I think as far as how many on a scale of Borg 1 to Borg 9, what would you give the Black Hole?
Neil deGrasse Tyson can kiss it. I would give this one a Borg 8, but it is slow in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I'd give it a Borg 7.
Okay. I'm going to stick with the Borg 8. I mean, probably in my personal feelings, it's one that I can watch over and over and over and have watched. So I mean, in some ways it's a Borg 9, but as far as like showcasing Ernest Borgnine, I think it's a Borg 8.
Yeah.
And so he like I said, I think Harry Booth is probably one of the roundest characters, and it's always the one
that just
is to me
the tummy that Tova loves so much.
Yes, but I think his brains in this movie show. Not to mention his great salt and pepper hair, by the way, in this movie. He's transitioning.
He had
He's becoming old Borgnine
Yep.
in this movie, but
He had that nice salt and pepper hair.
Yeah.
He had that dark mustache.
Yeah, he was looking quite dapper in his sweater. Yeah,
Well, there you go, kids. Black Hole. It's on Disney Plus. That's where we watched it.
Yeah.
It's the first thing I watched when I got Disney.
Me too. The very first thing
I remember signing up and I'm like, wait a minute. Disney made the Black Hole.
Yeah.
Click. What are you watching? My kids can't get into it. I'm like, go back to your room. We're watching the Black Hole.
Yeah. You won't get it.
Hey, all right. Well, just like in the beginning of this episode, I'm Paul.
I'm Mark.
And always remember the importance of being earnest.